the hills of Wales, where the wild winds blow, live the crazy Celts from long ago. With woad on their cheeks and lime in their hair, they danced with the druids and wrestled a bear. Our crazy Celts, loud and proud, painted blue and shouting loud. Roundhouse rebels, sheep in tow, history's wildest, now let's go.
Right, so here's the truth. Being a Celtic kid isn't all sword fights and shouting at Romans. It's mostly chores, mud, and trying not to get trampled by your cousin's goat. I'm Anwen, and I live in a hill fort near what you now call Holyhead. Back then, we just called it the hill with the good view and the bad-tempered sheep. I live with my mam, my tad, my two brothers, who smell like old turnips, and my gran, who claims she once wrestled a druid for a loaf of barley bread. We've got a roundhouse with a thatched roof, a fire in the middle, and smoke that goes everywhere except out the hole in the top. If you've never woken up coughing with a chicken sitting on your face, you haven't lived. Let me tell you about my week. It started with Monday, which is pig chasing day. Not officially, but our pig, Blodwen, has a habit of escaping and sprinting through the fort like she's training for the Celtic Olympics. I was halfway through grinding oats when I heard the yell, "She's out again." I dropped the quern stone, grabbed a stick, and joined the chase. Blodwen zigzagged past the blacksmith, knocked over a basket of apples, and headbutted my brother Rodri into a ditch. Glorious. After we caught her with a trail of turnips and a lot of shouting, I had to help Mam with weaving. She's making a new cloak for the chieftain's daughter, who insists it must be the colour of victory. No one knows what that means, so we're using green, victory-ish. I got to spin the wool, which is fun until the spindle falls in the fire and you have to explain why your thread smells like burnt goat. Tuesday was worse, it was dung day. That's when we clean out the animal pens and spread the muck on the fields. Good for the barley, Tad says. Bad for my nose, I say. I wore my oldest tunic and tried not to breathe. My little brother Murig thought it was hilarious to throw clumps at me. I retaliated with a well-aimed cowpat. He cried, I got told off. Worth it. After dung duty, I helped Gran collect herbs. She's the fort's unofficial healer, which means she knows which plants cure headaches and which ones make you see dancing squirrels. We found mint, nettles, and something she called druid's eyebrow. I asked what it does. She winked and said, ask me after the solstice. Wednesday was market day. Traders came from other hill forts with carts full of pottery, tools, and mysterious lumps they claimed were cheese. I helped Mam sell her woven belts and tried to swap my carved spoon for a shiny bead. The trader said no. I added a drawing of a horse to the spoon. He said no again. I added a second spoon. He gave me the bead and a suspicious look. Victory. That afternoon we had a storytelling session. Everyone gathered around the fire while Gran told the tale of Branwen the Brave, who defeated a Roman scout using only a cloak, a carrot, and a very angry duck. I asked if it was true. She said mostly. I asked which part. She said the duck. Thursday was training day. The older kids practiced with wooden swords and shields. I joined in even though I'm technically too young. I got paired with Guion, who thinks he's a warrior because he once scared a squirrel. We clashed swords, shouted battle cries, and accidentally knocked over the water barrel. The chieftain's son slipped in the puddle and landed in a basket of onions. Best training day ever. Later, I helped Tad repair the palisade. That's the spiky wooden fence around the fort. A storm had knocked part of it down and we had to replace the stakes. I got to use the axe, which made me feel powerful until I dropped it on my foot. Tad said, you'll be fine. Gran said, put mint on it. I said, I'm never touching an axe again. I will. Friday was feast prep. We were celebrating the barley harvest, which means music, dancing, and more food than you can shake a stick at. I helped roast meat, grind flour, and decorate the roundhouse with garlands of ivy and hazel. Mam let me wear her best brooch. I felt like a queen. Then Blodwen stole a turnip and knocked over the stew. I felt less like a queen and more like a soggy peasant. At the feast, we had roasted boar honey cakes and something Gran called festival surprise. It tasted like onions and regret. The druids sang songs, the warriors danced, and the kids played Chase the Cloak, which is like tag but with more yelling. I won. Twice. Saturday was quiet. Everyone was tired from the feast. I sat with Gran and asked her what it was like when she was a girl. She said muddy, loud, full of stories. I said same as now. She smiled and gave me a carved bead. For your own story, she said. Sunday was my favourite. I got to explore the hill fort with my friend Ira. We climbed the ramparts, looked for owl feathers and found a stone that looked like a face. We named it Gareth. We also found a tiny bronze ring buried near the ditch. We showed it to Tad. He said it might be ancient, I said it might be magic. Gran said, don't wear it unless you want to marry a squirrel. So after the feast and the dancing and the mysterious onion pudding, I decided I was ready for something bigger. Something legendary. Something druidic. Now druids are the clever ones. They know all the plants, all the stars, all the secrets. They wear long cloaks, speak in riddles and occasionally vanish into the woods for important tree business. Gran says they're wise. Tad says they're weird. I say I want in. So I made a plan. Step 1, gather ingredients. I needed mint for wisdom, mud for mystery, and something sacred. I chose Mably, our chicken. She's not sacred, but she's fast and slightly terrifying. I tied a bit of mint to her leg and declared her my spiritual companion. She pecked me. Twice. Step 2, build a ritual circle. I used sticks, feathers, and a suspiciously bendy carrot. I stood in the middle, raised my arms, and chanted, O mighty sky, O ancient earth, grant me the powers of the druid. Nothing happened. Then Mably pooped in the circle. Gran said that counts as a sign. I told Ira about my ceremony. She said I was mad. I said she was jealous. She said she'd rather be a warrior. I said warriors smell like turnips. She said druids talk to chickens. We didn't speak for an hour. Then we found a shiny beetle and forgot we were arguing. That's the thing about being a Celtic kid. 1 minute you're having a dramatic feud, the next you're best friends again because someone found a cool rock. We've got a whole collection. Rocks that look like faces, animals, even one that looks like the chieftain's nose. We call it Sir Snout. We also play games. Our favourite is Rampart Runners. You race along the top of the hill fort without falling off. Points for speed, style and not landing in a ditch. I once did a cartwheel and landed in a goose, 10 points. We also play spear toss with sticks, shield slam with baskets and druid dodge, which involves avoiding Gran when she's in a mood. Sometimes we sneak into the woods. Not far, just past the outer ditch where the trees get thick and the air smells like moss and mystery. We look for mushrooms, feathers and secret paths. Once we found a hollow tree with carvings inside, spirals, stars and a face with big eyes. We called it the Tree of Knowing. Then Murig got stuck in it and cried. We called it the Tree of Slight Panic. Back in the fort, life goes on. Mam weaves, Tad repairs tools, Rhodri tries to train Blodwyn to sit. She doesn't. Gran mutters to her herbs and occasionally throws mint at people. I help where I can, grinding grain, fetching water, chasing chickens. But mostly I watch, listen, learn. Because even though I'm just a kid, I know things. I know how to spot a storm by the way the wind smells. I know which mushrooms make you giggle and which make you see ghosts. I know how to sneak past the palisade without getting caught. And I know that one day I'll be more than just Anwen the pig chaser. I'll be Anwen the wise, Anwen the brave, Anwen the slightly minty. So there I was, minding my own business. Well, technically I was hiding behind the grain store eating a honey cake I wasn't supposed to have, when the horn blew. Not the dinner's ready horn. The visitors incoming, try not to look like a disaster horn. Everyone scrambled. Mam started brushing straw off her tunic. Tad muttered something about not another goat raid. Gran just sighed and said, put the good cloak on the chieftain, the one without the stew stain. Turns out it wasn't a raid. It was a visit, a delegation from the hill fort over the ridge Cebrin. They'd come to discuss boundaries, which is adult speak for argue about who owns the bit of land with the nice turnips. They brought gifts, a basket of apples, a carved horn, and a very large man named Bledin who looked like he could wrestle a tree. Our chieftain offered barley bread, mead, and a polite smile that said, please don't mention the turnips. Now I wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the meeting, but I had a plan, a diplomatic plan, a cake-based plan. See, I'd made a honey cake, sort of. It was more of a honeyish lump with bits of hazelnut and a suspicious texture. I called it Anwen's peace offering. I snuck into the roundhouse where the adults were talking, held it out to Bledin and said, would you like a cake, mighty warrior of Caer Bryn? He blinked, took the cake, bit it, chewed some more, swallowed, then said, tastes like ambition. I beamed, the chieftain stared at me like I'd just offered him a frog, but Bledin laughed. This one's got spirit, he said. You should send her to negotiate with the Romans. And just like that I was a peace ambassador, for about 5 minutes, until Murig ran in, tripped over the firewood and knocked over the mead. The Caer Bryn delegation left shortly after that, but not before Bledin gave me a wink and said, keep baking, little druid. I told Ira about it later. She said I was lucky I didn't poison him. I said it was diplomacy. She said it was dumb, I said she was jealous, she said I had flour in my hair. We were best friends again by sunset. That night I lay in bed listening to the wind whistle through the palisade. I thought about the visitors, the cake, the way everyone had looked at me like I was mad, and the way Bledin had laughed. Maybe being a kid didn't mean staying quiet. Maybe it meant trying things, saying things, baking things, even if they were slightly crunchy. It started with the wind, not the usual breezy hilltop kind, the kind that makes your cloak flap and your hair stick to your face. No, this wind had teeth. It howled through the palisade like a hungry wolf and made the roundhouses creak like old knees. Gran sniffed the air and said, "Storm's coming." Tad looked at the sky and muttered, "Big one." I looked at the chickens and saw Mably trying to dig a hole under the grain store. That's when I knew it was serious. We rushed to tie down everything that could blow away, baskets, tools, my brother Murig, he's small and very aerodynamic. Mam stuffed extra moss into the roof thatch. Tad checked the palisade. I was sent to herd the animals into the shelter. That's when I noticed something. Blodwen was missing. Now Blodwen isn't just any goat. She's stubborn, sneaky, and slightly magical. She once escaped a pen, climbed onto the chieftain's roof, and refused to come down until someone offered her a honey cake. She's also mine, sort of. I feed her, brush her, and occasionally argue with her about boundaries. So when I realized she was gone, I panicked. The storm was getting closer, clouds like bruises, thunder rumbling like a hungry belly. I told Mam. She said she'll come back. I told Tad. He said she's probably in the ditch. I told Gran. She handed me a cloak and said go. So I went. I wrapped myself in my thickest cloak, grabbed a torch and slipped out through the side gate. The wind nearly knocked me over. The sky was dark and growling. I called her name. Blodwen, Blodwen, you daft goat. Nothing, just wind and the occasional flying leaf. I checked the usual spots, the herb patch, the midden heap, the place behind the blacksmith's hut where she likes to nap. No sign. I was about to give up when I heard it, a faint bleat carried on the wind. I followed the sound down the hill past the outer ditch into the trees. The torch flickered, the mud sucked at my boots. My heart thumped like a war drum. I kept calling. Blodwen, come on, girl. Then I saw her stuck in a thicket, her leg caught in a root, eyes wide and wild. I dropped the torch into a puddle naturally, crawled through the brambles and started pulling. She kicked. I yelped. She kicked again. I grabbed her horns, whispered, "It's okay," and yanked. She came free with a squelch and a very loud fart. We both fell over. I laughed. She sneezed. We were a team again. Getting back up the hill was harder. The wind was stronger. The rain had started, cold, sharp, and sideways. I held onto Blodwen's collar and she pulled me like a hairy, grumpy sled dog. We stumbled through the gate just as Tad was about to go looking for me. He didn't say anything, just wrapped us both in a blanket and handed me a cup of hot nettle tea. Mam hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe. Gran said, "Told you she'd find her." That night, as the storm raged outside and the fire crackled inside, I sat with Blodwen curled at my feet and thought. Bravery isn't about swords or shouting. It's about doing the scary thing anyway, even if it means crawling through mud for a goat who doesn't appreciate you. The morning after the storm, the fort was a mess. Bits of thatch everywhere. One of the palisade stakes had snapped clean in half. The grain store roof was flapping like a very confused bird, and Blodwen had somehow ended up in the chieftain's roundhouse again, chewing on his ceremonial cloak. While everyone rushed around fixing things, I was summoned, not by Mam, not by Gran, by the chieftain himself. Now our chieftain isn't scary. He's got kind eyes, a big beard, and a voice like a sleepy bear. But still, when he says, "Anwen, I need your help," you stand up straight and try not to trip over your own feet. He said, "We've got a problem. The path to the river's blocked. A tree came down in the storm. We need water and the warriors are busy fixing the palisade. Think you can handle it?" Me handle it, a real job, a grown-up job. I nodded so hard my braid hit me in the eye. So off I went, me, Ira and Murig, who insisted on coming and immediately fell in a puddle. We followed the path down the hill past the herb patch through the outer ditch. And there it was, a massive tree right across the trail. Roots in the air, branches everywhere, and a very smug squirrel sitting on top. We tried climbing over, too spiky. We tried going around, too swampy. We tried shouting at it, not helpful. Then I had an idea. "Let's make a new path," I said, "through the brambles." Ira looked at me like I'd suggested dancing with a badger. "That's mad," she said. "Exactly," I said, "let's do it." We hacked and stomped and crawled. We got scratched, strung, and covered in burrs. Murig got stuck in a bush and had to be rescued with a stick. But after an hour we'd done it, a new path, winding and wobbly but clear. We filled our buckets at the river and carried them back up the hill, one sloshy step at a time. When we got back, the chieftain was waiting. He looked at the water, then at us, then at the scratches on our arms and the mud on our faces. "You did it," he said. "You found a way." I grinned, Ira grinned. Murig fell over again. That night I sat by the fire, sipping nettle tea and feeling taller than usual. Not because I'd fought a battle or tamed a dragon, but because I'd solved a problem. I'd led a team. I'd made a difference. Gran leaned over and whispered, "Told you you'd be more than a pig chaser." I smiled, then Blodwen trotted past wearing my cloak and chewing on a turnip. So here I am, sitting on the rampart with Blodwen snoring beside me, watching the sun dip behind the hills. The sky's all orange and gold, like someone spilled honey across the clouds. The fort is quiet, just the crackle of fires, the clink of pots, and the occasional "Oi, who took my cloak?" It's been a wild week. I've chased pigs, baked peace offerings, survived a storm, cleared a path, and accidentally became a druid, sort of. I've argued with my best friend, made her laugh again, and learned that bravery isn't about being the loudest. It's about showing up even when you're scared. I used to think being a kid meant waiting to grow up, waiting to be important, but now I know better. Kids build paths, kids rescue goats. Kids make the chieftain laugh with a cake that tastes like ambition. We're not just the future, we're part of the story right now. So if you're listening to this and you've ever felt small or silly or like your ideas don't matter, remember this: the Celts believed in stories, in voices, in people who dared to speak up, even if their hair was full of straw and their tunics smelled like sheep. You don't need a sword to be strong. You don't need a crown to lead. You just need curiosity, courage, and maybe a slightly magical chicken. One day I'll be a healer, or a warrior, or a storyteller, or all three. I'll travel to other hill forts, learn new songs, find old secrets. Maybe I'll even meet a Roman and teach him how to dodge a goat. But for now, I'm Anwen, daughter of Madog, friend of Ira, keeper of Blodwen, and this is my hill, my home, my story. And it's only just beginning.